All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to tackle a question that seems to be everywhere these days. Is blockchain a bubble, or is it really going to revolutionize, well, everything?
Yeah, it's a big question.
It is. And to help us unpack it, we're turning to a book that breaks it all down in plain English, no jargon required. It's called, very appropriately, Blockchain Bubble or Revolution.
Straightforward.
I like it. Gets right to the point. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is the book doesn't actually start with all the tech stuff. It starts with money. Good old-fashioned money.
Makes sense. Got to start with the basics.
Right. Cash, gold, the things we're used to. But the book makes you think about the limitations of those familiar forms of money. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of the downsides of dealing with physical cash or even gold?
Well, for one thing, it can be stolen pretty easily, or you have to worry about like counterfeiting. And if you're trying to buy something online, good luck paying with a gold bar.
Uh-huh, exactly. It just doesn't work in our digital world. So then there's the other side of it, what the book calls middleman-mediated money, things like banks and PayPal. Those seem pretty convenient at first, but
But then you've got fees. And what about people who don't have bank accounts? They're kind of left out.
yeah, good point. And then there's that whole security thing. In the age of data breaches, you can't help but worry about who has access to your financial information.
It's true. So much for convenience, oh.
Right. It's like every solution just creates a whole new set of problems. And it's so cool. The book actually uses this amazing example from history to illustrate this point. It talks about the raised stones of Yap.
Oh, wow, the giant stone discs. I remember reading about those.
Yes, fascinating.
Yeah.
They use these massive stones as currency on this island in the Pacific. And get this, these stones were so huge they rarely even moved.
No way. So how did that work?
It was all about community agreement. Like, if everyone agreed that you owned a particular stone, you did,
Yeah.
even if it was sitting miles away.
That is wild. Talk about intangible money.
Right. It's based entirely on trust and shared understanding.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you wonder if those islanders were onto something that we're just now catching up to with blockchain.
Yeah, it's like they were way ahead of their time.
So let's jump forward to our time. This is where Bitcoin enters the picture, the brainchild of the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto.
Satoshi. Still nobody knows for sure who that is, right?
Nope, still a mystery.
Yeah.
But their vision was pretty clear. A decentralized system, electronic cash that could operate without banks or governments. What made Bitcoin so revolutionary was using cryptography to make it secure and transparent.
Right. That was the game changer, cutting out the middleman entirely and relying on math to keep things honest.
Exactly. And it all started, believe it or not, with pizza.
Wait, the pizza story?
Yep. Back in 2010, a guy named Laszlo Hanyecz traded 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas.
10,000. Oh, man, those pizzas must be worth a fortune now.
Seriously. It just shows how much things have changed. But it was a pivotal moment. It gave Bitcoin real-world value and showed that people were willing to use it for everyday transactions.
Yeah, more than just a theoretical idea. But how does Bitcoin actually work? I mean, under the hood, what's going on?
It's all about mining.
Mining. Like for gold.
Kind of, but digital. Think of it as a massive online competition. People all over the world are using powerful computers to solve complex math problems.
And why?
The first one to solve the problem gets to verify a bunch of Bitcoin transactions and add them to the blockchain.
Oh, right, the blockchain. That's the permanent record of every Bitcoin transaction ever made, so anyone can see it.
Exactly. It's like a giant public ledger. And the miners are the ones keeping it honest.
So it's like they're getting rewarded for their work with Bitcoins.
Exactly. That's the incentive to play by the rules. The system is called proof of work.
Proof of work. Makes sense. But what about using Bitcoin as an actual currency? I mean, its price goes up and down like crazy.
Yeah, the book gets into that. It charts the wild price swings that Bitcoin has been through. It makes you wonder, is it really practical to use something that's so volatile for everyday purchases?
Right. One day your coffee costs you $5, the next day it's $500.
Exactly. And then there is those high transaction fees and the fact that it can take a while for transactions to go through. It's definitely not as quick and easy as swiping a credit card.
So maybe not the best for everyday stuff just yet, but wait, there's a whole other universe out there, right? What about all those other cryptocurrencies?
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started. We've got a whole world of altcoins to explore next.
Altcoins, that's a good word for them. Alternative coins. So many different options.
It's a jungle out there. But we'll dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. Welcome back, listeners. It's time to dive deeper into the world of altcoins.
It's a crazy world out there. Where do we even begin?
Well, the book actually starts by talking about Ethereum, which is, well, it's more than just a cryptocurrency. It's like a platform, almost like a decentralized internet in itself.
Ethereum? Yeah, I've heard of that. But a decentralized internet, that's a big claim.
It is, but that's the idea behind it. Ethereum allows developers to create these things called smart contracts. It's like, imagine a contract, a legal agreement, but written in code and stored on the blockchain.
Okay, so it's all automated and tamper-proof.
Exactly. These smart contracts can then be used to create all sorts of decentralized applications, or dApps.
dApps, okay. So what kind of things are we talking about?
Oh, all sorts. Financial applications, supply chain management, even things like um, games.
Games on the blockchain. That's interesting.
It is. And because it's all decentralized, there's no single company or entity controlling it. Potentially, it could revolutionize how we interact online.
That's pretty mind-blowing. But if it's so great, why isn't everyone using Ethereum already?
Well, there are challenges. One of the big ones is scalability. As more and more people use it, the network can get bogged down and transactions can slow down.
Like a traffic jam on the information superhighway.
Exactly. So finding ways to scale up Ethereum to handle more transactions is a big priority.
That makes sense. And then there's Bitcoin's whole volatility problem, right?
Right.
I mean, that's a major roadblock for using it as an everyday currency.
You're right, and that's where stablecoins come in.
Stablecoins, those are supposed to be pegged to something more stable like the US dollar, right?
Exactly. So instead of fluctuating wildly like Bitcoin, they're designed to maintain a more consistent value. The book talks about a couple of examples like Tether and Day.
Tether, Day, yeah. The idea is to have the benefits of crypto, like decentralization and security, but without the wild price swings.
Exactly. It makes it a lot more practical for everyday transactions. But, not everyone is looking for stability. Some people actually want more privacy.
Privacy? That's where things get a little controversial, right?
Yeah, for sure. But that's where privacy coins come in. These are cryptocurrencies that are specifically designed to shield transaction details from prying eyes. The book mentions Monero as an example.
Oh, narrow, right. I've heard of that one.
With Monero, the sender, receiver, and even the amount of the transaction are all hidden. It's like sending a secret message that only the intended recipient can read.
So complete anonymity, that raises some eyebrows, for sure.
It does. While privacy is important, there are concerns that these privacy coins could be used for illegal activities, like money laundering, because they're so difficult to trace. It's a tricky balance.
Privacy versus security, a classic dilemma. But all this talk about different cryptocurrencies makes it seem like Bitcoin is yesterday's news. Is that the case?
Not necessarily. While altcoins are definitely pushing the boundaries, Bitcoin is still the king in terms of market value and brand recognition. It's like the gold standard of crypto.
The OG, the original gangster.
Mhm.
But okay, so we've got all these different types of cryptocurrencies, but is it all just hype, or are there actual real-world applications for this technology?
Oh, there are definitely real-world applications. In fact, the book shifts gears a bit and starts talking about how businesses are using blockchain to improve their operations.
Really? Like how?
Well, take Walmart, for example. They're using blockchain to track their food supply chain. It helps them ensure food safety and reduce waste.
So it's like a digital trail that follows the food from farm to store.
Exactly. And because it's all on a blockchain, it's transparent and tamper-proof. Everyone involved can see where the food came from and how it's been handled.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So blockchain isn't just about money and cryptocurrencies. It's actually being used to solve real-world problems.
Absolutely. It's a versatile technology. Another interesting example is how blockchain is being used in the gaming industry.
Gaming? That's surprising. What are they doing with blockchain?
Well, they're using something called non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. It allows gamers to truly own their in-game items and assets.
NFTs, that's another one of those buzzwords that's been popping up everywhere lately.
They are, but they're actually a perfect fit for gaming. Imagine you're playing a game and you earn a really rare item, like a special sword or armor. In the past, that item would just be data on a game server owned by the game company. But with NFTs, you can actually own that item as a unique digital asset.
And you could even sell it to another player, right?
Exactly. It creates a whole new economy within the gaming world.
That's pretty cool. But let's be real here. There are still some big challenges with blockchain technology, right? I mean, I've heard about things like scalability issues and the environmental impact of all those computers mining Bitcoin.
You're right. Those are definitely important considerations. Especially with proof-of-work systems like Bitcoin, the energy consumption is a major concern. It takes a lot of computing power to mine new coins and secure the network.
And that's not very sustainable, is it?
Not really. So people are looking at alternative ways to validate transactions that don't require so much energy. One of the most promising is proof of stake, or
Proof of
POP.
stake. Okay, how does that work?
Instead of relying on miners to solve complex math problems, POS systems choose validators based on how much cryptocurrency they hold and are willing to stake as collateral.
So it's less about brute force computing power and more about having skin in the game.
Exactly. And because it doesn't require all that energy-intensive mining, it's a lot more environmentally friendly.
Sounds promising,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there are trade-offs, right? Nothing's perfect.
Of course. One concern with POS is that it could lead to centralization. The people with the most cryptocurrency would have the most influence on the network.
Ah, so it's a balancing act. Trying to find a system that's secure, efficient, and decentralized. It's a lot to think about. And with all this talk about blockchain's potential, it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
Absolutely. There's a lot of noise out there, and it's important to be critical. Do your own research. Don't just believe everything you read online.
Good advice. Speaking of new and exciting things, the book also mentions decentralized finance, or DeFi. It sounds pretty radical.
DeFi is really interesting. It's about taking traditional financial services like lending, borrowing, and trading and putting them on a blockchain.
So it's like cutting out the middleman, the banks.
Exactly. DeFi platforms allow people to interact directly with each other without needing a bank or other financial institution.
That sounds incredibly empowering, but also a little risky.
It is. DeFi is still very new, and there's a lot of experimentation happening, but it has the potential to revolutionize how we think about finance.
It's like the Wild West of finance.
Yeah.
But DeFi isn't the only area where blockchain is shaking things up.
Not at all. The book talks about how blockchain is being used in healthcare, supply chain management, even the art world. It's really just the beginning.
So blockchain isn't just about cryptocurrencies. It's about a whole new way of thinking about trust, transparency, and how we interact with each other.
Absolutely. And as with any new technology, there are both opportunities and challenges. It's up to us to decide how we want to use it and what kind of future we want to create.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. I'm excited to see what the future holds for blockchain and what other mind-blowing applications we'll see in the years to come.
Me too. And who knows, maybe we'll even see some of those challenges resolved.
Now that would be a revolution. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the big picture and the potential impact of blockchain on our lives. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into all things blockchain. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. From those mysterious race stones to self-executing contracts, it's hard to believe we've covered so much ground.
I know, right? And we've still got so much to unpack. But in this last part, I think it's time to step back and look at the big picture. What does all this blockchain stuff really mean for the future?
The million-dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
And the book doesn't shy away from it. In fact, it dives right into how blockchain could completely disrupt the systems we're used to, especially in areas like finance and government.
It's pretty radical when you think about it. Like, could blockchain actually shift the balance of power?
Well, that's the hope for some people, isn't it? The idea that blockchain can democratize things, give individuals more control.
Yeah, like in the world of finance. We've talked about decentralized finance, or DeFi. Could that really challenge the power of big banks and institutions?
Potentially, yeah. DeFi platforms cut out the middleman, giving people more direct control over their money. But, of course, there are risks, too.
Right, like what if things go wrong? Who do you turn to for help if there's no central authority?
Exactly. It's uncharted territory in a lot of ways.
Right.
And then there's the flip side of that democratization argument.
Which is?
Well, some people worry that governments could actually use blockchain to increase their control and surveillance.
Ah, so it's a double-edged sword. A tool that can be used for good or bad, depending on who's wielding it.
Exactly. And that's why the book emphasizes the importance of ethics and responsible development. We need to be really thoughtful about how we design and implement these systems.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the values behind it.
Right.
And I think that's where education and open dialogue come in. right? We need to talk about these things, figure out what kind of future we want to build.
Absolutely. It's not about blindly accepting or rejecting blockchain. It's about understanding its complexities and potential impacts so we can make informed decisions.
So what are some of the big questions we should be asking ourselves? What should we be thinking about as we move forward?
Well, for starters, how do we balance innovation with things like privacy and security? How do we make sure these technologies are accessible and inclusive? And how do we prevent them from being used for harmful purposes?
Those are some big questions, for sure. But I think it's exciting too, right? We're at the forefront of something that could fundamentally change the world.
It is exciting and a little bit daunting, to be honest. But the book ends on a really thought-provoking note. It suggests that maybe the real revolution isn't just the technology, but the shift in mindset that it brings about.
A shift in mindset. What do you mean by that?
Well, blockchain forces us to rethink some pretty fundamental things like what is trust? Who has authority? What is value? These are questions that philosophers have been grappling with for centuries, but blockchain is bringing them into the digital age.
It's like blockchain is pushing us to evolve not just our technology, but our thinking as well.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole journey so fascinating. It's not just about lines of code or financial gains. It's about exploring what it means to be human in a world that's rapidly changing around us.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
It's been an incredible exploration.
It really has. We've gone from ancient stones to cutting-edge tech, and I hope our listeners have come away with a better understanding of this complex and rapidly evolving landscape.
And maybe even some new questions to ponder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the story of blockchain is far from over. It's still being written, and we're all a part of it. Thanks for joining us on this journey.